Hi, my name is Dawn Nargi. I'm the executive director of the W Connection, an organization I co-founded in 2009, shortly after the death of my husband. The organization was started with one goal in mind: to help women rebuild their lives after the death of a partner. I am so excited to be here today with Margie Bissenger. Margie is the host of the podcast Happy Bones, Happy Life. She is the creator of the online program Happy Me, Happy Life, which helps people live a more empowered and joy-filled lives. Margie has been teaching her patients happiness habits for over 35 years, and she has seen the powerful effects happiness has on chronic pain and both physical and emotional recovery. Margie, I am so delighted to speak with you today. One of the things that widows ask me when they first started the W Connection is, will I ever be happy again? Tell us a little bit about what you do and how you would answer that question.
Well, first of all, I think we need to talk about the definition of happiness and what it's not, because there are people who think happiness is walking around 24/7, with a plastered grin to your face, or living in a Pollyanna state of denial, which isn't what it is at all, because we're going to have grief. We're going to feel sadness. We're going to feel emotion. So that's not what it is. What it is a deep sense of peace and well-being that is not dependent on your circumstance. So when you have that, what's so beautiful is you have the resilience then, so that when things happen, like, loss of a partner, you can much more easily ride the waves. So it's this deeper sense. And the interesting thing about happiness, there's one other piece that I've added to it, and it's living your life in color, because we're really not here to just survive and live in black and white. We're really meant to thrive. And so there's many, many things we can do that we can have joy, and we can find joy again in life. And that's what I've been teaching people for over 35 years. And it's, I'm a physical therapist, so it was really shocking to me, the correlation with teaching these habits and health and well-being, and how powerful they were. So that's sort of anything. And I'm also a health coach and teach about nutrition, but everything, to me, this is the base. And the good news is it doesn't matter where you start, that everybody has the ability to raise what's called their happiness set point. So it's, your base level of happiness. So it's actually exciting, and it's doable. And that's what I see. And when people do learn these habits, so many things happen that they can get joy back in their lives. So I know sometimes it seems impossible. You may be sitting here thinking, oh, that's just not possible for me. This has just been, too much of a loss to even think that way. But the good news, it is available, and it's something you can have. And it doesn't distract from the loss. It's not that you're not going to have your feelings still. It's just, as I said, this deep sense of peace and well-being.
Wonderful. I like that idea of that sense of well-being. So it's great when we can start to offer widows hope. So what are some of the practices that you teach to move women to hope, to move women towards that sense of well-being?
There's 21 of them. The class I teach is actually 21 habits. And they found the difference between people who are happier in life and those who aren't, or that they do certain habits. So by just adopting some of the habits, but I always start with the foundation. It's sort of like a house. And the foundation is being a victor in life and not a victim, because it's so easy. It's so easy, especially when we've suffered a loss, to really say, oh, poor me, poor me, look what I have to go through. And to stay in that victimhood, because it is, people have been through a lot. But the problem is that you don't get anywhere. And that's the biggest thing. And how do you know if you're in victimhood? Usually things like complaining, blaming, or shaming, which is self-blaming. A lot of people live in those doing that. And where it may help temporarily, or you can have a whole group and you're just complaining and complaining, it really doesn't move the needle on the happiness. It does the actual opposite. So what you do is you become a victor. And instead of focusing on the problem, which, you can focus for a short time on the problem, but you switch to focusing on solutions, and it can make all the difference in the world. Okay, so what can I do? Or what can I get involved with? And it's, so I just starting with that. And I have a quote, if one that I thought was so powerful that I brought it with me. Do you want me
So
to?
I do want to share one thing. So I think, so, as you talk, I'm thinking about, my own story and how does what you're saying relate to my own story. And I think, like you said, there is a time, in my early stages of widowhood where I was sad, I was angry. It was, it was awful, right? I was moving through life in what we sometimes call the widow's fog. And that's okay. I think you shared that at some points we get it. We're not going to be, like you said, happy all the time, right? But there, I did allow that myself that time to just be sad, to be in that moment of devastating loss. And then at some point I started to move forward. And I think where I am now is we sometimes talk about the growth that comes through widowhood, and the way I explain it, because if somebody was to ask me if I was happy, I would say yes, right? And the way I explain is I say that I am still very sad that my husband died. It was tragic. My son was just 3 months old when my husband suddenly passed away to cancer. But I am very happy with the life that I created. So I think I totally understand what you're saying, where we could allow that sadness and then you start to move through, okay, what can I do? What are these steps? So I'd love to hear more about those steps that you were talking about.
Okay, so that was, that's just one in terms of switching it when you find yourself, and it's easy to do. It's very sad, and absolutely, you can feel sorry for yourself, and you need that time. But but sometimes you can just say, okay, well, what are some solutions, or what are some things I can do? And so can I read this quote? Because I think this is so powerful.
Absolutely, I love it.
Viktor Frankl, he was a psychiatrist in the concentration camps. And he wrote a wonderful book, Man's Search for Meaning. And this quote's just to me so powerful because he was a true victor, and that was his name. I'll just read it. We who lived in concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts, comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. So we still have that ability. So, I think what it is just to catch yourself. Are you complaining, blaming, and shaming? And rightfully so. It can, but just to sort of see, okay, well, what can be some solutions, or what things can I do that are positive for me? And so I would say that's the first thing. But the second thing that everybody can do, I'm giving you easy things, is, so often there's just so much negativity, and our thoughts are so powerful, and what we focus on grows. So the average person, regardless of loss or what, 80% of our thoughts are negative. But when something's happened and when you have suffered a loss, it even can grow beyond that. And so what do you do when you're just bombarded with negative thoughts? So there's 3 easy steps you can do. The first thing is, as I said, what you focus on grows. And despite what happened, there are good things existing in everyone's life. And so, but we need to focus on them. So when you get up in the morning, you want to be a detective for the good. What good is there in your life? Maybe that you aren't seeing, or what good can you start looking for in the day? And if that's so hard, pretend you're giving away maybe the Academy Awards to the nicest person the cutest dog, the nicest looking plant, or it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter. It can be the smallest thing, but just to start also focusing on what good exists, in your life. And so number one, just start being a detective for the good, because oftentimes we could be in the most beautiful scenery and we're just not seeing it, or we're taking a walk in nature and we're just focusing on our head. So just to start looking at those things that are good, that do exist in your life. So that's number one. But number two is when something good happens. They've done research on this, and you want to savor it. You want to savor it for at least 20 seconds. That's how they feel you can start creating new neural pathways. So if there's a pretty sunset, instead of just looking at it, oh, that's nice, take it in. Someone gives you a compliment. Oh, I love the work you did, or whatever. Instead of saying, oh, it was nothing. Thank you. I really worked hard on it, or whatever it is. Take it in, savor it. And you just want it to expand as much as possible. And the third thing, when you have the negative thoughts, and you're going to have them, and you never want to just throw things in the closet. You have to deal with all those. And there's, lots of techniques as well. But instead of letting it absorb you so that you're all encompassed with these thoughts, you can say, okay, and then think of 3 true but positive thoughts, other things that are going on, just to start changing your focus from that of negativity. And it works. It really makes a difference. You start to see, even if, someone says to you, where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? And you're a 1, well, why are you not a 0? There's something good. So I think for everybody, there are these pieces. And once you start focusing on them, things start changing. So those are some easy beginning steps. And I guess the other thing, we can go into this more, is what I've found really helps people who are really feeling down in the dumps when they're ready, is to just get involved with something bigger than you are, whether it was when you're ready, the W connection, for example, or, that changes that, when you have all this energy and you have whatever, and to do something that has a bigger focus it seems to really, really help people.
You're really making me look at my own journey. And, when you start to think of your own habits and what you do, I realized that there were some key things that I did when I was first widowed. I had, like I said, a 3-month-old baby and a 7-year-old dog, and the dog had to go out every morning, and the baby had to come. So every morning I would go to Central Park, and, living in New York City, the park is the most beautiful place in the world. So as soon as I would step in, I guess, as you call it, that happiness meter would go up. And I took a long walk through Central Park into the woods in Central Park. And I think that was one of the things for me that was one of the most important things on my journey. So I love to hear the research that you're talking about, and how we move to that sense of well-being and that sense of happiness, and relating it to what I've done. I think the other thing that I want you to touch upon is this idea of doing something bigger than yourself. Again, that interests me because it makes me think of my own journey as well. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Well, I just wanted to say the interesting piece of, you said about the happiness, is that, everyone thinks, because they've done research on what is it that creates your happiness at point, because different people, we know there are people who the glass is half empty. There are people who the glass is half full. I mean, so they found 50% is genetic. However, now with epigenetics, we can turn on and off our genes, so we can actually control that. But here's the craziest part of that, only 10% of your happiness is based on your circumstances. That's what the research shows. So yes, you'll be sad for a while. They've done research on people who've won the lottery. You're much happier. But then after a year, you go back to your base level. Or people who have become paraplegic, same thing. After a year, they go back to their base level. Maybe they're very sad for a while. But it's only 10%. Everyone thinks if only this didn't happen, or if only he didn't die, or if only I had a different job, or if only then I'd be happy. And that's just not what research has shown. 40%. So it's only 10% circumstances. 40% is based on your habits. So we have a tremendous amount of control over our habits. So that's 40%. And as well as the genetics, we can turn on and off genes depending on how well we take care of ourselves as well. So yes, so that's one part. Then your second part of your question is about doing something bigger than you are. And I think that goes with passion and purpose. And I think people start finding and reclaiming joy when they find their passion and purpose in the world. And when, so often we just sort of, even regardless of if we had loss or not, so many people are not living a life full of passion. We just sort of, exist. We're doing a job or we're doing this, and we just don't even think if it matters. And I think one of the best things to do is ask yourself a question, because like you said, that made you so happy being in Central Park in the walk. That was something that nourished your soul and that gave you some joy in the midst of, something so tragic. And so you can ask yourself, what makes me come alive? We just don't do that. And even write it down on a paper, like what makes me come alive? To me, I love riding my bike in the woods. I love dancing. I love being with girlfriends and great conversation, but just I love going to musicals. You can write down what really makes you come alive, and then make sure you do it. Make sure you add it into your life. And, you can sort of see what you do in your life, your everyday, and sort of see, is it making you come alive or not? And so then with purpose, then getting involved in something, it doesn't matter what it is. It's helping the earth. It's helping being part of the W connection. It could be anything. It could be it doesn't have to be a big movement either. It could be taking care of, one person or helping one person. It doesn't matter. It's just doing something that's helping others in some way, or helping the land, or helping the environment. Wherever you're called, it's something, sometimes you just get a calling and you may not know what it is, and you may need to try different things. And so, but I think that helps get people to another place, and it just helps move people beyond. And you feel so good when first of all, when you're doing something you're passionate about. There's nothing better. And then when you feel you have a purpose beyond just taking care of yourself, it's really just a wonderful thing. And research has been, so positive with that as well. And there's just one other thing when you're doing this, and you and I talked about this, Dawn, about tuning into your own body, because sometimes we get so lost in the situation, we just don't tune into ourselves. And there's just two energies to sort of see if you're on the right track. There's the energy of contraction, and then there's the energy of expansion. And the difference is, can we try the energy? Can I let people feel this for a minute? Would that be okay?
That'd be wonderful.
Okay, so in the energy of contraction, what I want you to do is just tighten your wrists, go in bad posture, scrunch up your eyes, and just sort of hunch over a little bit. And it's so hard to feel happy in this position. And even if you try to say, I feel happy, it's hard. Whereas if we're in this position, if we now do the opposite, the one of expansion, where we open our arms, we open our chest, we feel expanded. And it's so hard to feel miserable in this situation. Can you feel the difference in the energies?
I can totally feel the difference. I think as soon as my arms went open, the smile came on my face. So it's almost like you're welcoming the day. And I think one of the things with widowhood, or with loss, we realize as widows that life is finite. Right? When you lose somebody you love, whether it's your partner, whether it's your parent, you have this realization that life is finite. And for me, that did mean that I was going to enjoy every aspect of my day. And again, it's so good to hear you talk about the research and talk about the practices, because some of them I do naturally, and some of them I do naturally because I was widowed. So for me, when you talked about what do you love? I think you said what fills your cup. Again, I realized that Central Park was that place, and I created my life and my job where I was able to walk in there 90% of the year. Like every morning, I would go to Central Park. So mostly every day you will see there with my dog and sometimes my son. So I think again, that kind of makes me think of what you're talking about, that expansion. I walk into Central Park and it's like, I am here, world. So it again, it's wonderful to see those practices. So when you talk about those practices in practice, do you talk about things like, thinking about the 5 things you are grateful for when you wake up in the morning? Would that be a practice that somebody can do every morning?
Oh, there's so many different, as I said, I teach 21 different, and one of the pillars of the program I teach is about living with an open heart. And that's gratitude, forgiveness, loving kindness. And there's, yes, gratitude. Gratitude is the antidote to stress. So in an atmosphere of gratitude, stress really can't live. And so not only, and there's many different practices, but yes, that's a wonderful practice any time of day. And different people, there's never one cookie cutter thing. I like to give people a smorgasbord and what resonates with you and what works in your life. And so, but that's a beautiful practice of gratitude. And they have done some research on that, showing that you can even take it to the next level. Like instead of just saying, oh, I'm grateful for my son, to like add details about it. Like, I'm grateful for my son because he's such a considerate person and what he did today was so kind, or whatever it is. But when you add details even to the gratitude, it even make it, it's all good. It's all good. But yes, gratitude is very powerful. And you can even, so you can do it in the morning, you can do it in the evening. But what I like to do also is take appreciation breaks, because what we appreciate appreciates, and we'll get more of it. So when you are grateful for something, or someone's been kind to you, or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Just stop, or even stop in the middle of the day and just stop for a minute. Okay, what am I grateful for? And it can completely change how you feel, because you start feeling centered from your heart. And I think everybody knows that you can walk into a room and you can feel whether someone's living from, a heart-centered place or they're not, you can feel that. So yes, I love that. I'm big into forgiveness as well. That's something that as a physical therapist, I was working with chronic pain and for many years, and people would hold on to things and hold on to grudges, and it would show in their muscles. It was amazing to me when I saw this connection. That was interesting. When someone decided to forgive somebody, all of a sudden their muscle tone was different. And I saw the physical manifestations of these things. And so it was something I realized a lot of, and teaching happiness now for quite a while in these happiness programs, numerous people have said to me, when we got to this module on forgiveness, they couldn't do it, or they couldn't forgive people because it was just too horrible what they did, or they couldn't forgive themselves. A lot of people don't forgive themselves. And they had to stop. And then once they did, they just found this new lightness and you don't condone. I think the key is you don't condone what happened, because so often you can't. But, whether you write a letter, forgiveness letters, there are things you can do, but you just move beyond it. You learn what to do so you can get to the next step and forgive. And so anyway, but yes, for those practices, I couldn't agree more. Gratitude is such a wonderful way to shift your focus. And they've done so much research on gratitude. And they even did a study with positive psychology, the program at the University of Pennsylvania. They did a study and they found a gratitude letter, even if a person has already died. When people wrote, the highest happiness people achieved from gratitude was when people wrote a gratitude letter, just telling someone why they were grateful for them. And it was a very, very powerful exercise that kept people's happiness even elevated, like for quite a while.
Wonderful. I'm taking my mental notes of what I'm going to do. And I have that practice of expansion, that practice of gratitude. that practice of forgiveness. But would you mind sharing maybe two more practices? I know you have, how many did you have?
Oh, there's 21. There's so many. I could, as I said, I teach an 8-hour class, 8 hours of practices. Another one that really is good if you're feeling stressed. So this is a heart-centered practice. And this is actually something I learned. I didn't create this. This is from the Heart Math Institute. They're one of the biggest organizations that's done research on heart health and happiness. And so they found that there's different patterns, and there's coherence, and heart rate variability, there's coherence. Actually, it doesn't matter. What they found was by doing this practice, because and they've looked at tracings, of EKGs, and they found that when someone is in incoherence, their heart rate, they find that's when they're, sadness, frustration, anger. They found that it can reduce your immune system by 6 hours versus when someone does forgiveness, happiness, gratitude, loving kindness. That can increase your that changes the heart rate to one of coherence, and you can increase your immune system, improve your immune system for up to 6 hours. But here's an easy practice. So this one is something very simple to do, and they found that it really helped people get into this coherence technique. And so very powerful. It's so easy. Okay. So what you can do is and the other thing is, when you're in stress, sometimes it's just hard to get out of it, but it's sort of like a switch. When you're in stress, what it does, it activates the sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, or freeze. And there are so many negative health consequences of that. I'm not going to go into them, but there's so many things that stress affects. And so you want to get out of that, and you want to get into parasympathetic, which is the opposite, rest, digest. And so this does that. It's sort of like a switch. So this is just an easy thing you can do anywhere. If you can, and if you can't, if you're somewhere you can't put your hands on your heart, you don't have to, but if you can, you take your hand and you put it on your heart. That's step one. If you can't do that, just focus on your heart. This is called heart-centered breathing. And just doing that increases oxytocin, which is the love and bonding hormone, which starts reducing your stress right away. And so you'll close your eyes and you'll put your hands on your heart. And then I'm a big person in, not shallow breathing, but this one, you're going to try to take deep breaths, but just visualize, pretend the breath is coming from your heart. So you'll focus on the breath coming in and out from your heart. So we can all do that now. Just think you're breathing in and out of your heart. And now what I want you to do is think about something that just makes you happy. It could be a person, it could be a situation, it could be a four-legged, an animal, whatever it is, something that just makes you feel love. And if you can't, just think of love, compassion, ease, breathing that in. But think of whatever it is, a situation, a place, a person, again, animals, and just breathe in, visualize it as much as you can, and just breathe in that moment, breathe in that good feeling. And just let it take over your whole body as you breathe it in. And that's it. You can do it for longer, but that took a couple seconds, right? It's really quick, and it just snaps you out of the stress and helps, helps with the heart rhythm, and it just helps calm you down, and then it's easier to move on. So it's just an easy interrupt, actually. Sometimes we just need to stop, do something like that. And that's a technique that's actually been proven. It's helped so many people. You can do it, again, if you're not somewhere, you can do it even, you don't even have to close your eyes, just stop for a minute. You're getting tense, you're in traffic or something, stop, take some breaths, visual. I'll just do, you focus, visualize, and then bring in a situation, a person, a dog, whatever it is that does cause love. And you can just feel that, because the love response is the opposite of the stress response.
I can definitely feel it. As soon as I put my hand on my heart, my body just relax, that sense of well-being. And then when I started to breathe, I felt it. I definitely felt it. And I hope everybody who's watching this did that practice with us. So I think today we are here, and you were so gracious to do this video with us to honor the United Nations International Widows Day. So how should we end our conversation? What can we share with the 268 million widows that are across the globe and the 11 million widows that are in the United States?
Well, I think, first of all, I think your organization is amazing and you don't want to do it alone. I think a couple things. I think number one, as you said it so beautifully, these periods that are such struggle. And so, our biggest conflict and our biggest challenges, as sad as they also do offer growth opportunities. And it's hard to see it when you're, in this, as you said, the fog. But that's what I've seen from look at your story. And I know Jean, and I know so many people have, it's created other opportunities that you sort of had to. It wasn't almost that you were, but there are growth opportunities. And I think care about yourself, take care of yourself. It's so important. Your own self-care, your own health, it matters because you need to show up for everybody else and yourself as well. So I think self-care is really important. I think getting in a community, there's nothing better. They've also done research on what is the most important thing, people's relationships. And so I think community, because as I said, no one wants to do it alone, and to have support of a community that you can draw from and that can help you move through whatever area you're at or whatever, on your journey. It's so very important. And no, it's not selfish to care about your own happiness, because it's probably the least selfish thing you can do, because here's the crazy thing, it's contagious. And we have something called mirror neurons in our brain that mimic, that copy what someone else is doing. So when you show up sad and miserable, it's just going to go on to the next person. And so then everybody around you, I mean, I know everybody can know, again, different than grieving. Of course, you want to experience what you have to go through and show up any way you want. That's very, very important, not to cut that short or anything. But I'm saying in general, when you work on your own happiness, you show up with more joy, and that's contagious to people around you. And it just spreads that. And in this world today, there's so many sad things going on, and it's a tough world. So embrace the joy that exists, embrace the joy that you can find, and start doing things, whether it's, again, overwhelm is not what we want. One little step, like for you, Dawn, that was going to Central Park. One thing that does, makes you come alive, and just add it gradually. You do one thing, when you're ready to add something else. If there's a group that's calling to you and makes you feel expanded, then choose that, so it's all possible. And you're just a beautiful example of that, Dawn. And I know other people in your group, Jean as well. And so I would say that's what I would say. It's all possible. Care about yourself. Know that joy is possible, and one step at a time. The journey of 1,000 steps. What is it? The journey of 1,000. What is years of begins with a single step. I love that quote, but the journey of 1,000 miles. Now I can't remember the exact quote, but the point is one step at a time, and that's doable for you, and that you feel good about.
Yeah, I want to, obviously thank you for the kudos for the W Connection and what we do here. But thank you to you too. I can see that sense of well-being, that sense of joy, that sense of happiness kind of come through the screen. And I'm wondering if we should end this session by, maybe putting our hands on our hearts and just giving.
We could do that. We could end the session with just like a prayer. Let's do that. Let's put our hands on. Ready? We'll put our hands on our heart.
This is to those 268 million widows across the globe, and those 11 million widows in the United States, honoring International Widows Day.
Yes. So let's do this. Let's all visualize that we're connected by our hearts. So think of all of us connected through our hearts. So we're all joined together. And in this community of love and in this heart-centered group, let's first of all, let's send light. Let's send light and love to all of us. Let's fill us up with white light. It's a beautiful way to fill yourself with white light. So think of white, powerful, healing light that's energizing as well. And the white light, let it help wash away negativity and some of our sorrow. Let it just fill us with light. And so now that we're in this circle with light, we're going to wish healing, love, and connection. And we're also going to send out loving kindness to the world. So we're going to send it to ourselves so that we heal and we are able to move on our journey while respecting what we've gone through and appreciate what we've gone through. But what we're going to do now is in this group, let's send out love as well to everyone else in the world, all the widows who can use white light, who can use love, who can use good health. Let's send out all that light and love to them as well. You can just feel the energy. Because when you send out light and love, it's very, very powerful. And we give thanks, and we can just keep the light with us throughout the day.
I thank you.
Oh, thank you. I feel energized now.
Okay, thank you so much, Margie, for doing this with us today.
Oh, my pleasure, Dawn. And thank you for inviting me. And any way I can help this wonderful group that you've created, I'm willing to do whatever.
Wonderful. Thank you.